Number 10, Kanye West ranting about Kim on Skid Row. Kanye West definitely isn't known for being the most normal celebrity there is, but there was one moment in 2021 where the rapper appeared particularly tone deaf even for him. Following a split from Kim Kardashian, Kanye had that period of time where he seemed to want to publicly ask her to take him back, including while giving a speech on Skid Row. Skid Row is the infamous downtown Los Angeles neighborhood known for its abject poverty and common violence. The rapper made an appearance during their Thanksgiving food drive for the less fortunate with Reverend Troy Vaughn, but while giving what was supposed to be an empowering speech to the homeless and poverty-stricken people who wanted to sit down for a hot meal, Kanye decided that that was the time to go on a lengthy rant about how God wants him back with Kim Kardashian. While in front of groups of people waiting for food, Kanye made the incredibly confusing statement of, quote, "If the enemy can separate Kimye, there's going to be millions of families that feel like that separation is okay. But when God brings Kimye back together, there's going to be millions of families that are going to be influenced to see that they can overcome the work of the separation, of trauma the devil has used to capitalize to keep people in misery while people step over homeless people to go to the Gucci store." Even for Kanye, a billionaire telling one of the largest unhoused populations in the US that God would reconcile him with his estranged billionaire ex-wife to help their cause is a bit much.
And at number 9, Doja Cat. This one isn't that embarrassing, but Doja Cat had some fans scratching their heads when she appeared on the Jumbotron at the Super Bowl. She was seated next to The Weeknd, and when the camera panned to the group, she decided to meme the situation in usual fashion. When the camera appeared, everyone smiled and looked towards it, other than Doja, who looked at the camera like she was afraid or something, clearly memeing the situation. Then when another camera showed a different angle, we could see her slowly raising her thumbs. She was not the only one who had a questionable appearance on the Jumbotron though. After a few more stars were shown, the camera panned to see Shaq, who did some really uncomfortable tongue movements before the camera then panned away. And at number 8, Janet Jackson. Janet Jackson is easily the celebrity with the worst track record relating to the Super Bowl, and it's no question that she's had the most embarrassing experience. In 2004, she had the honor of leading the halftime performance, but she made the mistake of inviting Justin Timberlake to perform with her. This incident was so bad, it coined the term wardrobe malfunction. While her and Timberlake were performing the song Rock Your Body, Justin reached over and ripped her shirt, exposing her bare breasts to everyone watching live. Over 540,000 complaints were filed after the incident, and CBS was even fined for allowing it to appear on TV. Following the mishap, Jackson was banned from attending the Grammys that year, and all the world could talk about was Janet Jackson, even though Timberlake completely caused the malfunction. Watching the performance back, it's clear that moment was staged. We're just not sure where exactly it went wrong. It was rumored that he was just supposed to pull back the top part and expose a red lace bra that she was wearing underneath, but obviously he ripped off too much. Jackson's career has never really recovered following the event. And at number 7, Katy Perry. Thankfully, Katy Perry did not embarrass herself by doing anything wrong, but her halftime show is not remembered for how entertaining or groundbreaking that it was, rather it's remembered because of the embarrassing left shark. Katy Perry headlined the halftime show in 2015 and put on a bright and colorful performance, as expected. When the show ended, all anyone could talk about was Perry's backup dancer, who became memed as the left shark. During the performance, Perry had 2 giant sharks behind her dancing while she sang Teenage Dream, but the left one caught everyone's attention because the shark was off cue the whole time and looked to be falling behind. That year, the shark became one of the year's top Halloween costumes. After this performance, everyone wanted to know the full story behind Left Shark, so the dancer inside the costume, Brian Goss, shared his side. He'd been dancing with Perry for 5 years beforehand, and he said that he felt the performance was up to interpretation, so he decided to play a different sort of character as the goofy shark who did not know what he was doing, and clearly he played that role perfectly. And at number 6, Coldplay. This group's halftime show was so monumental and iconic that people still talk about it to this day. But the embarrassing part is that nobody gives Coldplay any credit for their own show. It's hard not to love Coldplay, but sadly their Super Bowl halftime show was a little cringy, mostly because the band was upstaged by their surprise guests, Beyonce and Bruno Mars. I assume most of you didn't even know that Beyonce's legendary Super Bowl performance in 2016 was not actually her show, it was Coldplay's show. She just guest starred, and completely overshadowed the band during their own show. Considering many people don't remember anything about Coldplay's performance, it's clear they took the back seat. During the show, Chris Martin's performance looked more like a third wheel, not someone who was actually supposed to be there. Halfway at number 5, Christina Aguilera. Back in 2011, Christina Aguilera was responsible for a huge blunder when she sang the wrong lyrics to the Star-Spangled Banner. Everyone knows that the national anthem is sang at the beginning of all sporting events, and the countries representing both sides are sang before the game starts. At the Super Bowl, this anthem is the American national anthem, and even though everyone thinks they know the national anthem, they probably didn't know it as well as they think and are used to just mouthing along to it. So when Christina Aguilera messed it up, it was a big deal. Aguilera's powerful voice boomed throughout the stadium as expected, but she made the mistake of singing the wrong words at the wrong time. The pop star confused "Oh, the ramparts we watch, we are so gallantly streaming" with "What so proudly we watch at the twilight's last gleaming." After the mishap, Aguilera addressed the blunder and said that she simply just lost her place. And at number 4, 50 Cent. During the 2022 halftime show, 50 Cent came out as a special guest performer. He sang his hit song "In the Club" in the middle of the landmark show. But the part of his performance that got everyone talking was when he hung upside down while singing a part of the song, in a bizarre and uncomfortable looking decision. This move was a reference to the music video for the song, where 50 can be seen doing upside down crutches. Since this stunt started with him upside down, the set was instantly memed, with fans assuming that 50 was hanging upside down for quite a while he waited for Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre to finish up their song. Like this tweet that read, "50 Cent waiting for his part the whole time, #halftime show." And at number 3, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson opened the Super Bowl with an energetic speech to rile up the players and viewers for the big event about to take place. The nearly 2-minute speech was electric, but during it, fans could not help but notice that his fly might have been down during it. While speaking, he was wearing maroon pants, and you could faintly see white material peeking through his fly, almost like his underwear was just barely showing. Many online called it the 2022 Super Bowl wardrobe malfunction. His clothing choice had already drawn comments before people's eyes were drawn to his crotch though. He was wearing a clashing all-purple ensemble that looked like it had shrunk in the wash and was about to rip every time he started yelling. And at number 2, Kanye's Super Bowl commercial. Kanye West was not only ranting about his ex-wife during the Super Bowl, he also starred in one of the commercials for McDonald's. And I'm sure the PR team for McDonald's was not happy with how the day turned out. The commercial started with people driving up to the window to order and having no idea what they wanted, which prompted them to do the classic, as they figured out what they wanted. The commercial shows countless people thinking about what to order, then at the end of the commercial, Kanye rolls up in a huge military-style tank and says, "Hey, can I get a..." until the commercial ends. Ye, who was actually at the Super Bowl with his kids that night, has proclaimed his love for McDonald's in the past. In 2018, he tweeted, quote, "McDonald's is my favorite restaurant." The commercial itself is pretty funny, but the fact that the McDonald's PR team was most likely in disarray was hilarious. And finally, number 1, Mickey Guyton. At this year's Super Bowl, there was an awkward mix-up that was not only embarrassing for the NFL, but also for the performers. Singer Mickey Guyton, who sang the national anthem, was incorrectly labeled as Jhené Aiko while she was up singing. In their defense, Jhené Aiko was singing at the event alongside Guyton, however Aiko sang "America the Beautiful" at a different time. At the time of the mix-up, both women were standing on the field of SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. Immediately, NBC Sports released an apology on Twitter, which read, quote, "We incorrectly showed Mickey Guyton and misidentified her before showing Aiko's performance. We apologize to both artists for the error." And at number 10, Kanye West's mask. We all know that Kanye loves to stand out, and that was no different at Sunday's Super Bowl. Kanye showed up to the game with his 2 kids, Saint and North, and he decided to wear a black mask that covered his entire face. The only ventilation in the mask were multiple tiny black holes made around his eyes. During the game, he was also posting constantly to Instagram, mostly taking aim at Kim Kardashian and her new boyfriend Pete Davidson. Comedian and director Judd Apatow even gave the inside scoop on Kanye's feelings about the outfit, and apparently Kanye regretted the choice. Apatow heard Kanye and a friend talking about the ridiculous mask. Apatow's caption said, quote, "I'm sitting near Kanye. He seems very hot and sweaty in the mask. I overheard him say, 'Man, I wish I didn't go with the mask today, but now that I'm in, I can't really bail on it.'" Kanye then asked a friend if he could lose the mask at halftime, but the friend said he just has to commit to the decision now. Kanye apparently added, quote, "I wish we would have cut some more vents in this thing."
At number 9, Jenny Slate. Sometimes it takes a mistake to realize that you just aren't cut out for something. Mistakes are good for teaching us things, even though they totally suck in the moment. This was pretty much the case with comedian Jenny Slate during her brief time on SNL. Though she's pretty successful until now. Back in 2009 when she worked on SNL, she was still up and coming, looking to get her foot in the door. Things were starting to look up for Jenny when she landed a coveted role on SNL as a writer and performer, but things quickly took a nosedive as she messed up pretty big during her very first performance. In her first appearance as a member of the cast on the show, she was performing one of the sketches that she wrote called Biker Chit Chat, and in one of her lines she accidentally switched up her words from being PG-13 to being a little more adult. Jenny ended up committing one of the greatest SNL sins, saying the F word. She caught herself saying it but just brushed it off, pretending that no one else heard it, but unfortunately people did hear it. This mistake sort of stuck with her for a while she was working there, and though she wasn't fired for that specific reason, she did end up leaving at the end of the season. Though there was a misconception that the F-bomb was what really ended her SNL career, Jenny did say in an interview that, quote, "That's not why I got fired, I just didn't belong there. I didn't do a good job. I didn't click. I had no idea how Lauren felt about me. All I know is it didn't work for me and I got fired." End quote. Her career eventually picked up, but it probably set her back a bit after being fired from SNL. Before we carry on with this cringe fest, why not leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this one. At number 8, Ashley Simpson. After this infamous performance, Ashley Simpson's career was never the same. Ashley Simpson was getting her music career off the ground in the early 2000s, and in 2004 she was invited to perform a couple of songs on SNL. Like I've said before, this kind of opportunity can be a pretty big deal for some, but for others it can be detrimental. Anything can happen during a live performance, and it could be good or catastrophic. Well, Ashley accepted the invitation to perform and geared up to perform her songs Autobiography and Pieces of Me. Her performance of Pieces of Me went off without a hitch. Actually, it was very successful and it got her audience pumped for another song. But this is where things turned sour. As the band got ready to start playing Autobiography, a track started playing, but it wasn't what people were expecting to hear. Instead of hearing an instrumental for the correct song, they were instead listening to a pre-recorded vocal track of Ashley singing Pieces of Me. This accidental slip-up revealed to everyone that she had been lip-syncing the entire time. Ashley then froze for a second, then started doing a really weird and awkward dance before rushing off the stage. It was absolutely mortifying and very detrimental to her career, and this incident stuck with her for years. Later on down the line, Ashley spoke out about this incident, saying that it was partially her dad's fault that this happened, saying that he suggested that she make a backup track because she was having trouble with her voice and he didn't want her to strain it more. Now Ashley looks back on this incident saying that it certainly sucked, but she's stronger for it, and that's definitely a positive way of looking at things. At number 7, Sinead O'Connor. Probably one of the biggest SNL controversies to date comes from the drama surrounding Sinead O'Connor, the Catholic Church, and SNL. The show had its fair share of controversies and scandals in the past, but I think few of them come close to this one that happened on October 3rd, 1992. On this episode, Sinead was asked to perform a few songs from her newest album at the time, and she agreed, but there was a little fine print to accompany her appearance. She was asked to perform one of her original songs, but instead Sinead opted to sing Bob Marley's song War. The show executives thought this was a little bizarre, but they went along with it anyway because they thought that no matter what she sang, it would still be captivating. Well, it was captivating alright, but not for the reasons anyone was expecting. That night during her performance, Sinead did a very dramatic rendition of the song, even switching up some of the lyrics to change the context and meaning. It was all starting to get a little tense until Sinead blew the doors off her performance by ending it with her ripping up a photo of Pope John Paul II saying, quote, "Fight the real enemy." She did all this as a means to raise awareness about allegations against the Catholic Church because she had personal experience with those who were allegedly hurt by members of the church, and she wanted to fight against it. This stunt prompted a lot of anger towards both Sinead as well as the show. For days following her performance, NBC received thousands of angry calls condemning them for allowing something like this to happen. Other celebrities like Madonna and Joe Pesci also had some harsh words for Sinead. This stunt ruined her career after this, and no one was quick to forget this scandal. At number 6, Charles Rocket. There was a time where SNL was in big trouble. From 1980 to 1981, SNL was facing a bout of struggle and negativity following a controversial position change. Because of this position change, most of the cast left, prompting people to have to hire a brand new cast. This new cast was untested, and so for the 80 to 81 season, they were really just in the dirt. One incident made things even worse for everyone, and that was when comedian Charles Rocket dropped an F-bomb during a skit. Though SNL skits can be controversial, this is one that absolutely is a no-go with those pesky F-bombs, and so dropping one can be very bad for you and the studio. During the season's 11th episode, Charles was closing out the show, and for whatever reason, he decided to let an F-bomb fly. While doing his closing, Charles, in reference to a skit that he performed earlier in the show, said, quote, "It's the first time I've been shot in my life. I'd like to know who the F did it," end quote. If you watch the footage back, you can tell that this wasn't an accidental slip-up on Charles's part, and he actually meant to say it. This was the absolute last straw for the studio, and they fired much of the cast and crew. At number 5, Kristen Stewart. I feel like hosting SNL would be one of the most stressful jobs to have. I mean, yeah, it's good exposure, and it can probably be a lot of fun being on the show, but there's also some pretty important rules that you need to follow, and breaking one of them can be pretty bad. This happened to Kristen Stewart back in 2017 when she was hosting SNL one evening. In her opening segment, she was going off about how Donald Trump didn't like her, and she even did a mini skit with 2 of the show's cast members. All was going pretty well until the end of that little segment because she accidentally dropped an F-bomb. As we all know by now, swearing on SNL is a big no-no, and she probably didn't get into too much trouble since it was an accident, but you can certainly tell that she was embarrassed by her mistake. At number 4, Elvis Costello. Usually when someone tells you to do something, you do it. Within reason, of course. When it comes to SNL though, it is strongly advised that you follow the rules, not just for professionalism, but also because you have to follow the rules of the network. Well, Elvis Costello decided to throw all of that out the window when he went against the show's wishes and performed a song on the show that they had previously objected to. As he was one of the musical guests on the show that night, he was asked to perform the song Less Than Zero. Well, he started playing it, but just 15 seconds into the song, he stopped the music and switched gears, going on to play the song Radio Radio, a song that was thrown out before the show. He completely went against the show's wishes, and as a result of this rule breaking, he ended up getting banned from SNL. At number 3, Kanye West. Kanye West is no stranger to causing controversy. I think we all know this by now. He just can't help the fact that he's a very outspoken person. When Kanye West was on SNL back in 2018, he ended up getting booed off the stage because of the remarks that he was making about Donald Trump and his support for the former US president. He came onto the show wearing a MAGA hat, talking about how he fully supported Donald Trump, and no one was having it. Even the host for that night, Adam Driver, started booing the rapper. His whole rant wasn't aired on TV, but a good chunk of it was, part of it including Kanye saying, quote, "There's so many times I talk to like a white person about this and they say, how could you like Trump? He's racist. Well, if I was concerned about racism, I would have moved out of America a long time ago." End quote. It's safe to say that he faced a lot of backlash after that night, but at this point, that doesn't even faze Kanye anymore. At number 2, James Franco. Back in 2017, a mini stunt in a skit went wrong on SNL. James Franco was playing a part in a holiday-themed skit where he was wrapping gifts, and his character cut his finger pretty badly and it was gushing blood. As part of the bit, he put his fake bloody finger in his mouth and his mouth filled up with fake blood. When Leslie Jones entered the scene, James spat out the fake blood and a lot of it ended up going into Leslie's mouth. It was so gross to watch, and apparently she spent the entirety of the bit trying not to gag. But this was seriously hard to see. Because of this mishap, James Franco ended up facing a little backlash, as fans said that he shouldn't have spat the blood at Leslie in the first place. And finally, at number 1, Adrien Brody. Adrien Brody is a super successful actor, but after a scandal while hosting Saturday Night Live in 2003, his potential hosting career began and ended all in one night. When Adrien was hired to host SNL one evening, one of the tasks he was given that night was introducing the musical guest for the evening. Seems like a pretty simple enough job, but he still managed to mess it up. On the night that Adrien was hosting, the musical guest turned out to be Sean Paul, and Adrien saw this as a perfect opportunity to introduce Sean in a very interesting way, to say the least. When it came down to announcing Sean's performance, Adrien came out dressed in fake dreadlocks, sporting a Jamaican accent. His bit was called out and was seen as offensive and uncalled for as he went off script to do this bit, which no one found funny in the slightest. Because this was such an epic and controversial fail, the actor was subsequently fired and banned from coming back on the show. He faced a lot of backlash that hurt his image for a while, but clearly he's bounced back since then. At number 10, Carmen. For many up-and-coming performers, the idea is that you want to get yourself out in front of as many people as you can. Fame, after all, is based on talent and fan base, so if you can get as many people as possible engaging with your content, then you're golden. For many people, SNL can be a quick way to get to the top, but for others, it can ruin your career even before it really got started. This sort of happened with the music duo Carmen in February of 2012. SNL can be a great testing ground for new artists, as new audiences are able to get a feel for this new talent. In January 2012, Lana Del Rey made her debut, and though she had some negative reviews, particularly those saying that she looked lost and distant on stage, she was able to turn these reviews into the image she holds today with her almost ethereal performances. But just a month later, when Carmen took the stage, their performance wasn't strong enough to catapult their career like it did for Lana. Carmen, though now disbanded and rebranded, was a music duo who got their start on YouTube by posting covers. Eventually, they got a large following by posting their renditions of songs like Party Rock Anthem and Super Bass, and they were able to release original songs with the help of their newly signed music label. The casting director over at SNL found them and invited them to perform on the show, and so they did. They performed their songs Broken Hearted and I Told You So, and after their performance, the reviews started pouring in, and it wasn't good. They faced a lot of criticism, saying that they failed to connect with the audience, and one critic said that their performance caused, quote, mild auditory distress. They were never really able to bounce back from this catastrophe of a performance, and so they eventually faded away, ending their careers.
Number 9. Ariana Grande licking donuts. Back in 2015, the former Nickelodeon star was the picture of innocence and was quickly becoming America's sweetheart. But things took a weird turn when surveillance footage displayed Ariana licking a tray of donuts in a small California bakery and remarking, quote, "What the f is that? I hate Americans, I hate America." Apparently, her excuse for licking the donut was she was frustrated because of the rates of childhood obesity in America. But like, girl, you walked into a bakery. What were you expecting? Carrots? After the onslaught of backlash and a police investigation, the singer issued a video apology, quote, "Seeing a video of yourself behaving poorly that you had no idea was taken is such a rude awakening that you don't know what to do. I was so disgusted with myself." While it's definitely not the worst thing a celebrity has done, it's definitely one of the more confusing and out of touch things. I wonder if any of those donuts got sold to some unsuspecting customers afterwards. Number 8, the Kendall Jenner Pepsi commercial. The famous Pepsi commercial that made the rounds back on the internet back in 2017. While America was embroiled in protests and the exposing of the police force for brutality and blatant racism, Kendall Jenner thought that was the right time to crack open a cold, crisp Pepsi and tell everyone to just get along. While the rest of the world was fighting for equal rights, Pepsi released peace and love with signs saying, quote, "Join the conversation." Kendall even bravely handed a Pepsi to a police officer in full riot gear. He drank it, and the entire crowd of protesters cheered and laughed and hugged in glee. Yay for equality. One YouTube commenter even stated, quote, "I find it amazing how they managed to offend so many groups of people and yet say absolutely nothing at the same time." Obviously, the internet was enraged, as at the same time this video dropped, protesters were being taken in unmarked vans by the FBI, and people were rightly angry at Pepsi for trying to profit off of the mass suffering of others. Kendall also swiftly apologized for appearing in the video, saying, quote, "I felt so fucking stupid. The fact that I would offend other people or hurt other people was definitely not the intent." Number 7, Justin Bieber and Anne Frank. While on tour in Amsterdam, Justin Bieber made a stop at the Anne Frank house back in 2013. While there, he wrote a message in the guest book that lit the internet on fire. The then 19-year-old Justin wrote, quote, "Truly inspiring to be able to come here, and was a great girl. Hopefully she would have been a believer." It provoked fierce online criticism for Bieber, who was accused of making the museum dedicated to the horrific experiences of Jewish people during the war about himself. However, the museum itself defended the star, although they did add the comment that his comment, quote, "wasn't very sensible." A spokesperson for the museum defended Bieber on the BBC, stating, quote, "He's 19. It's a crazy life he's leading. He didn't mean bad. And also, it's nice that he made the effort. He didn't have to come." And I mean, for what it's worth, and if you know me, I'm the last to defend celebrities, I kind of get where he's coming from. If Anne Frank were allowed to live now, where she would be a normal girl doing normal teenage girl things, she would have been afforded the luxury of obsessing over a pop star like so many kids do. But sadly, she wasn't. And I think that may have been the point that Bieber was trying to make, albeit in a very tone-deaf manner. Number 6, Sam Smith having a meltdown. If 2020 has taught us anything, it's that celebrities love to complain from their ivory thrones. Take Sam Smith, for example. During the strict times of the stay-at-home order, they took the opportunity to take pictures of themselves crying while sitting on the steps of their multi-million-dollar mansion, with the caption about having a meltdown because they were forced to stay at home. Meanwhile, New York City had to bring in emergency ships just to house the amount of bodies that had been overwhelming crematoriums to the point that they couldn't house any more victims of illness. Poor Sam Smith and their sad little life. Number 5, Gal Gadot's Imagine. Another top moment from the mess that was 2020. Although she wasn't the only celebrity to take part in this weird, out-of-touch video, Gal Gadot was the spearhead of it all. In a mashup with tons of different high-profile celebrities who all sang John Lennon's Imagine while locked inside their mega mansions, the moment was supposed to come across as heartwarming. Instead, people just saw these celebrities as not understanding the severity of what was happening to everyone around the world. Millions of people were dying, and Gal Gadot thought it was a good idea to preach peace and love while inside her heavily surveillanced mansion with a swimming pool and private chef. But like I said before, it wasn't just her. She also got Will Ferrell, Amy Adams, Natalie Portman, Mark Ruffalo, and Zoe Kravitz, among many others, to sing the song as well. Number 4, James Corden in a rat suit singing with Camila Cabello. Listen, I'm fine with celebrities doing their weird little things so long as it's over there where I don't have to see them. Kind of like a spider in my room that stays on the other side of the room and very far away from me. But when they decide to inconvenience people going about their day, nah, that's when it gets weird. Like for instance, one Los Angeles morning when James Corden and Camila Cabello decided it was a good idea to stop traffic in a city that's already known for insane gridlock and sing the song Can't Hurt You as a promotion for the new Cinderella movie that Camila stars in. James Corden was in a rat suit singing the song while everyone blocked traffic. Someone online even joked, quote, "Your husband just sliced the tip of his finger off making dinner and it won't stop bleeding. You're rushing to the emergency room and this happens. What you doing?" And then linked the video of James hip thrusting at a car in a rat costume. Number 3, Logan Paul in the Japanese forest. Okay, for this one, I'll say Logan definitely got pretty swift recourse after he published a video on his YouTube channel of him and his friends traversing through a forest in Japan that is known as being a place where people go to end their own lives. He and his friends had come across a body of an individual who had done just that and decided to film the body and themselves looking shocked while staring at it. The move was swiftly remarked as extremely insensitive, especially since it was monetized, showing that Paul got financial gain off of the immense suffering of others. His career was basically temporarily ruined over the video, although he's back now with a very successful podcast, albeit it's a bit more grown up. Number 2, Gwyneth Paltrow's life is harder than everyone else's. Gwyneth Paltrow is the queen of pissing people off. While she had a long history of saying things like, quote, "I'd rather die than eat cheese from a tin," she also managed to upset basically every mom by moaning about how her life is harder than everyone else's. Back in 2014, she told E! News, quote, "I think it's different when you have an office job because it's routine and, you can do all the stuff in the morning and then you can come home in the evening. When you're shooting a movie, they're like, we need you to go to Wisconsin for 2 weeks and then you work 14 hours a day and that part of it is very difficult. I think to have a regular job and be a mom is not as, of course there are challenges, but it's not like being on set." I think she failed to mention all the babysitters and full-time nannies and chefs she can afford to hire to care for her kids while she's off making millions of dollars. Number 1, Kendall Jenner and her cucumbers. Kendall Jenner once again has made herself known to be completely out of touch with reality on the new episodes of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Kendall insisted on cutting a cucumber herself while her mom seemed worried and asked her to ask the chef to do it. But she said no because cutting a cucumber is, quote, "pretty easy." Which it is, but not for her apparently. The model absolutely could not figure out how to properly cut a cucumber to the point where Chris stepped in and told her to get their in-house chef to do it for her. People online were calling it pathetic and tragic, which it absolutely was. Thank you so much for watching this video. I've been your host Sierra. See you next time.